Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Podcast. I am Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we're here to talk today about how things are not always what they seem. Especially in this age of social media and Instagram and, Facebook posts and all this stuff. We're always looking at what other people are putting out. And we're comparing our insides to other people's seeming outside, or at least the part they show us.
Right. The reel, the highlight reel.
Yeah. And now it's like the well-produced highlight reel.
Yeah. Editing and taking a million photos and picking the right one.
With the right filter.
Yeah.
I mean, even back in the day, it was, this thing where, everybody still wears a mask when they walk around outside. They'd still kind of pretend how things are, but you would see them one-on-one and you'd still be able to have that interaction with them. Now you're just looking through whatever lens a photographer used, whatever filters, whatever edits.
Tools.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
it's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it can leave a lot of people feeling like, oh, crap, I don't measure up.
Yeah.
I'm not as good as all these other people.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, you would have more to say about this than I do, but I wouldn't be surprised if in, 5 years, there's a bunch of new mental illness, like a new phenomenon that evolves from...
Well, kids are being bullied all the time now through social media.
Okay, so bullying, that's a new thing through social media.
But you're saying specific mental health diagnoses are related to comparing yourself to other people?
I think comparing yourself to other people, also compulsivity, constantly needing to touch your phone, or you feel inadequate or alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll show up, it shows up in depression rates and probably the same things. I remember the cool kids in my class when I was in junior high and elementary school and high school, I always tried to measure up to them. But they had to present themselves in the way that I saw them in school.
Right,
they didn't get to
face to face.
Yeah, they didn't get to etch out their pimples from pictures so that I'm sitting there all pimply and then you're looking at them going, oh my God, their skin is perfect. We live in this world now where it can be fake. And the reason this came up for me is, first of all, there's a really funny story in this episode. We've got Watkins on today, and he's like a meditation guru. And so he tells this really funny story about what you expect his life to look like versus a real story from his life that you wouldn't necessarily expect, that I thought was amazing. But we get this all the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that makes us who we are, though, is that we're so quick to admit to our faults and our weaknesses. We'll have babysitters come over and they'll spend the first few weeks with us. And then they're just like, God, you guys have the perfect life. And we basically laugh out loud. I mean, we're
well, I guess we haven't had a new one in a while
but everyone that's come through, and we get a lot of help, even for just a few hours here and there a week, we get a lot of help. Our kids are really great with new people. And every time there's this moment of oh, you guys are the most perfect life. And we just laugh and we're Google us, bitch. It's
oh, you think this is perfect? We'll tell you how to do it.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Yeah,
just get cheated on.
Yeah, they never come back again. No, they do. But
no, they all come back.
It's just funny. It's interesting, that perception, and even walking into our lives, we work really hard to be connected now and great humans to each other and to our children and to our communities. But we've come so far, and it's still really hard, and we have our struggles all the time. And even Light is talking about serious struggles that he's been through. And he just actually did a post last week about a friend that was God, you just have it all together. You have such discipline. And people say that to me all the time too. And it's no, I don't. I have plenty of days when I fall. I have plenty of days when I find myself in front of the fridge for an hour eating every single nut butter in the fridge.
At least now you're pregnant, so you have an excuse.
Now I'm pregnant, but even before, I wouldn't even talk about now. Now doesn't count. I eat whatever I want now. I'm not even registering conversations about that now. I'm saying prior to being pregnant, in my normal life in the last, 7 to 10 years since I've been a personal trainer and a yoga instructor and a raw food chef and all this stuff, this wellness, expert, I fall hard all the time. I'm rebalancing and recalibrating all the time. I go through, slumps and working out where I'm just not motivated all the time. And then I
don't know what you're talking about. I am always on my workout game.
Yeah. I mean, you've actually been really great lately, but, it goes in waves for everyone. And that's the point, is that we all are constantly trying to find the balance. Balance is like happiness. You don't just achieve it. You're not just at a point and you're like, okay, I'm balanced.
Yeah, it's actually the problem I have with most like self-help people.
Yeah.
Is I wish there was a little more vulnerability. Like some of them, like this guy, Brendan Bouchard, a couple of weeks ago sent out this email about a car accident that he was in and the low point in his time when he was depressed and all this stuff. And he was being vulnerable, which is great. But every single other email I get from him is, look at all these amazing things that I've done and shifted my understanding and all these like massive hacks that I've had to my brain and to the way I look at the world, which is awesome. And I believe him, actually.
Yeah, from a sharing perspective, it's nice to like, okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. But
look, I do what I do for a living, and I share with the clients on my Ignited Recovery course or whatever. Like, look, sometimes it gets tough.
Yeah.
I mean, there are days when I get up and I don't want to do half the things that I got to do.
Yeah.
That's okay. How does that compare to if you had the negative voice all the time in your head and if you didn't believe the opposite? And I think we are we kind of lead with the faults a lot of times. And I mean, we talked about this before, right? Like you told your parents that I was an ex-meth addict, drug dealer, convict, like before we went on a third date, before I ever met them.
Yeah. But I also, that wasn't to start with the negative. Like I was so naive. First of all, I was 20 years old when I met you. You were 28, like you were getting your PhD. You had turned your entire life around. To me, it was an inspiring story. I was so naive. I didn't even think of it as a bad thing.
I think
that's beautiful.
I totally hear you. And I think you're right. And I'm saying, I think that's why we lead a lot of times with the weaknesses or the things that other people would call. Look,
I think the weaknesses are beautiful. I think your vulnerabilities and the things that like your flaws, quote unquote, like that's what makes a person unique and special.
Well, I mean, on this podcast, where our whole goal is to be transparent and honest, I told that story, I think it was in the Busy episode, about that thing at the beach when we, it was that story when our friend's 1-year-old birthday. And a couple of people commented like, you sound like a douchebag looking at, other women on the beach. And I'm like, that was the entire point of the story.
Oh yeah, why don't you retell it? Because I think this is a good point. And yeah.
So we've gone through a lot of stuff, and this is like 6-7 years after we had gone through all that. And I was making a point that our communication had improved to the point where...
And our trust.
Yeah. I mean, I see things in the world, right? I'm aware of what's around me.
We all are.
But in the past, before this moment, or before I recognized it in that moment, which is now 5 years ago or 4 years ago, whatever, if I would have seen an attractive woman, especially at the beach when she's half naked behind you, I would have hid it, and that hiding of it would have caused me shame by itself.
Exactly.
Because I would have not wanted to tell you, because I would have felt bad that I even saw her, or I would feel bad about how that would make you look. But we had gotten it by that point to a place in our relationship where I knew that the right thing to do in that moment was to tell you that I'm being distracted by something. Even though that something that I'm being distracted by might slightly offend you, I'd rather deal with it in the moment and move to something else so I don't have to be distracted, so I can just look at your face. And it was ironic that the telling of that story made at least one person on like Instagram or something talk about how I sounded like a douchebag because I was telling the story. And I'm like, you're missing the point. The entire point of telling that story was I had held on to shame around the relationship, the monogamy, the ways that I'd screwed up our relationship. And we had gotten to a point where that woman that I saw was like an aside in the story. It was about the growth in our conversation.
It's also like it's a 1 second thing where like it isn't a big deal. It was like a speck in our day. But it could have become a big deal if you held it in, because then it feels like a secret. And to this person that was listening, which we love hearing all your comments. We mad respect, and we always want to have dialogue about it. But to come out and just be like, it made you sound like a pervert was just it was harsh. And that's exactly, then calling you a pervert and calling you names made me feel shame. Like, oh, maybe you should stop being as honest. Like, that was my first response, was like, we're being too intense. We're being too raw. We're being too vulnerable.
Screw that.
And I've spent a lifetime dimming my light and feeling like I needed to shut down a part of who I am authentically. And I feel like that's an exact example of like, we're here, we're sharing our hearts, we're sharing our souls, we're sharing our vulnerabilities, our rawness for the world to hear.
Right.
And then in one of our first episodes, someone's like, your husband's a goddamn pervert. You know, it killed me. And I was like, oh, we need to retract. We need to hold back. We need to not be so honest. We need to ease people in. But that's not what we're here to do.
No, not at all.
We're not easing into telling the truth.
Because we've had other people who've written us saying, oh my God, it was so nice to hear people actually being honest about what's really happening in their relationship.
Yeah, the majority of people are saying that. So those of you that have been amazingly supportive, thank you. And those of you that have constructive criticism or feel things, great, bring it on.
Oh, by all means. Like somebody told me that I swear too much, and I promise I'm doing my best to not, because this happens to me in life, and I think it sometimes does take away from the message for people who have a hard time listening to that.
And it's a practice for me too. I like swear like a
sailor.
I don't know about a sailor, but I swear.
Let's not swear to prove why it is that we swear a lot. No, I think that would miss the point.
Point being, it's a good practice for anyone, and we appreciated that feedback.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So keep the comments coming, positive and negative. Just try and, be a little more kind when you say it, not name call.
Yeah, and also be constructive. Like some of those people actually didn't want to have a conversation. They just want to drop a bomb and then leave the room.
Exactly.
That's also fine. Look, if that's all you want to do, that is also cool.
Yeah.
But
I'll block you, so.
But the cool thing to me is this. I know that there are people listening who find it refreshing that honesty is the thing. And so we're actually starting something new this episode. We are going to drop a relationship tip each time. And this relationship tip this time is actually learning to be honest.
Radical honesty.
About what's happening. The good, the bad, and the ugly is the key to the sort of relationship that at least Sophie and I have found works really, really well for us.
Yeah. And you might see a therapist that's like, no, don't tell it all. Leave things in the past that need to be there. Don't tell everything. We know what's worked for us.
Yeah.
And what works for you may be different. And
that's actually a good point, because we actually went all the way back to tell the truth. I don't think that's necessarily always useful.
No.
But in the present relationship, I think when you hold on to stuff,
it builds.
And even if it's tiny little things, they end up building and building and building.
I'll have one seriously innocent flirtation with someone, girl, boy, man,
You're flirting with boys now? How young are we talking?
I mean, I would consider a boy like 25 and under.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like handsome boys, but they're boys nonetheless.
Okay.
But I feel like those little interactions build up, like in my body. If I don't tell you, then it's like, here's my test always. If I think about it after the fact, then I know I need to tell you. Well, if I forget about it and it's not even a big deal, then I don't. But if it's something like, should I tell him that thing about
then you should.
Then I should.
I love it. So that actually goes really well with this tip, because this is the thing. That's the same marker I use. And people say to me like, well, how do you know?
You know.
And I say, if I'm thinking about it, then the moment I think about it is the moment I try to tell. So sometimes, I'll text you or whatever.
Yeah.
Because what I've learned is sometimes I won't say it at the right moment. And I'll wait for a perfect time, and then I'll either quote unquote forget about it, and then it might come up in my head like 2 weeks later, and
you're like, oh, then
I feel bad about it.
Now it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and there's just never a perfect time.
Yeah, so I say dump it as soon as, if it's holding space in your head, dump it. And this is the cool thing that we've found over time. Is yes, it takes a moment in the relationship, and by a moment I might mean 6 months to a year. Yeah. It takes a moment to get used to that radical honesty.
Oh, yeah. It definitely took some adjusting.
Because most of the people are not that honest to you, but this is your person.
This is your person. You want to be that honest, and it helps you to be a better person. That's the whole point here, is it's making you be more accountable to yourself, and then because it's for someone else.
I have an example from a recent conversation with a friend. I'm not going to call them out on it, but we were talking.
Call them out. I'm just kidding.
But we were talking, and they were having issues with their significant other. And one of the issues they brought up was they were away on vacation or at work or something. and they wanted to have like phone sex. They wanted to call and do like a FaceTime phone sex. So they called, they were all excited about it, and their partner was like, I'm not really in the mood or whatever. And they kind of played it off. And so our friend was really distraught. She was like,
what the hell?
Why does my boyfriend not want to do this with me?
Yeah.
It came out later that he had masturbated before they had the call.
Yeah.
And this, I know for a lot of you guys, this sounds super deep, but I made her in the 30-second conversation, we flipped this idea.
If you're blushing right now, just so you know, I was so that person. Like 5 years ago, I blushed at the sound of something sexual or masturbate. Like, maybe you're not. Maybe you're totally cool. But just know there's nothing wrong with you if right now you're like so uncomfortable listening to this right now. Okay, go ahead, Edie.
And this is probably late, but if there are kids around, this is not the right moment to listen.
Our podcast is never appropriate for kids. You better have those earbuds in.
All right. So in like 30 seconds, we flipped the conversation, though, from her being pissed that he did this to, hey, what if you had the kind of relationship where in the moment, because he wasn't feeling shame about it, he could say, you know what, babe, I didn't know you were going to do this. Like, you didn't tell me ahead of time you're going to do this. So I kind of took care of myself. I'm not really in the mood. But you guys would figure out a way to like still play it up so you could get turned on, you get what you wanted out of it.
Yeah, or set a date for the next time. Just have an open conversation.
But be honest.
Yeah.
So she didn't get left kind of feeling as if, well, why does my boyfriend not want me? But the reason that happened was because he felt shame about the fact that he kind of got quote unquote caught. But like, caught doing what? He didn't really do anything wrong.
He's an independent adult. He can do what he wants.
And his girlfriend's away.
Yeah.
So when you find this way to be honest, you end up finding all these amazing things about your partner that you literally didn't even know existed because you never were willing to go that deep, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So that's our tip. That's a super long tip. Our next tips will probably be a little bit more concise. We're going to move into the interview portion of this. And so I just want to thank 5 of the people who have left our comments and reviews. Thank you so much. We're going to thank Ari Girl, Miranda Husky Dog Mom. I wonder who that is. Yoga Girl named Vitas. That doesn't sound like a girl's name, but okay. Melody LA and J Dre 1167. Thank you for leaving us these amazing reviews
and subscribing.
And we love you all. Please, 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 if you like what we're talking about, leave us a little 5-star review and leave your comment
and share with a friend.
100% with many friends. Share with like 50 friends. Share
on your social. Like take a screenshot and share it with people.
We love sharing those again. Sophie is at Sophie Jaffe.
Sophie.Jaffe?
.Jaffe?
Yeah.
At Sophie.Jaffe. I'm at Dr. D. Jaffe. And if you want to email us any questions, and some of you have done this, and we're starting to create episodes based on the requests people are making. info@ignited.com is the email for that. We have an event. We're still going to be at Yoga Bala in Seattle.
Yep.
Right after Valentine's Day. I think
Bala Yoga.
Bala Yoga.
Yeah.
Flip.
So Bala Yoga, it's the weekend after Valentine's Day, so 17th, 18th. And on that Saturday, we're doing a Couples Ignited workshop.
That's going to be fun. It's like a half-day workshop.
Yeah, and this is for all types of couples. You don't have to be married. You actually don't even have to be in a relationship right now. If you're broken up, like bring one, bring all, bring your best friend if you guys both are having trouble in your relationships. And maybe
if you just want to learn about how to do this.
Yeah, we're just going to be offering really great tips and tools, and it'll be really fun. And then the following day, we're co-teaching. Adi's going to be he's going to be DJing, and I'll teach a HIIT vinyasa class. So superfoods afterwards, super fun.
A DJ 76.
A DJ. Yeah. So
we'll be in the house.
It's going to be a great weekend, whether you want to bring your couple, person, relationship, or if you want to come on your own and come just flow.
You can bring your mom if you want to bring your mom.
Yeah, bring whoever.
Yeah, it'll be
So join us.
Really,
that's
really
in
fun.
Seattle. Go to balayoga.com if you're interested. And by the time this comes out, it might already be sold out. So go and get your ticket if
I hope not.
It's still available.
Thank you guys so much. We're about to take this little break.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see and talk to Light Watkins, who is the bomb.
And he just wrote a book called Bliss More. So it's coming out soon. Actually, I think it's already out.
It's out.
It just came out. So
it's like out this week.
Bliss More. Mwah.
Love Light. Bye.
This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fixes all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
All right, welcome everybody to the interview portion of the Ignited podcast. We've got somebody special with us today. We've got Light Watkins. Light and I met, did we meet at Revitalize?
We met at Revitalize.
We met at Revitalize.
2 years ago.
And there's this thing, I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here in a minute, but you know when you just meet somebody and you start talking to them and it just kind of, he just kind of eases everything about the experience you're having in that moment. For me, Light, you're one of those people.
Thank you.
And, you know, I think that doesn't happen to me a lot. You know, my mind is super active all the time. And so I love finding people like that just kind of naturally, it's almost like an energy that envelops you and allows people that are in your presence to do the thing you're trying to get them to do anyway, which is beautiful. So why don't you start us out with telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you identify yourself to other people, etc.
So I met you as a meditation teacher. When I was at Revitalize, I was leading some meditations, and I was also doing some writing. Working on I think I was working on my first book, or maybe promoting my first book, which is called The Inner Gym. And then about a year after that, I started writing my next book, which is called Bliss More, which is coming out, which is going to probably be out when this comes out.
Woo-hoo.
Yep. Woo!
Yes, I bet that feels good.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting. I guess we'll talk about that later. But so I've been writing a lot. I also write a daily dose of inspiration email that I send out every morning, which takes about two hours of my day working on that. It's kind of like my writing meditation, so to speak.
And people get that by going to your website?
Going to the website, you can sign up for it, yeah.
We'll have that in our show notes.
Yep. And then I'm teaching a lot of meditation and doing trainings and retreats all over the world. And I also founded this movement called The Shine, which you've spoken at before. And
that was an awesome experience,
fantastic job, which is a nonprofit inspirational variety show with meditation, TED Talk component, food, community, philanthropy, and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Very cool. Very, very cool. And this new book that is out. So what was Inner Gym about? So
the Inner Gym, the subtitle is a 30-day program, 30-day challenge for strengthening happiness. So it was basically a metaphor for working out your inner, air quotes, inner muscles.
Gym.
GYM. And the premise is that, you know, we don't take it for granted that we need to exercise physically if we want to be strong, but we do take it for granted that happiness is a choice.
Oh, I talk to my clients about this so much.
Yeah. And it's true. Happiness is a choice if you're just looking for 5 minutes of happiness. But if you want sustainable happiness, if you want inner happiness, you have to exercise your emotional muscles. And you know, by just doing things like meditation, of course, expressing gratitude, you know, exercising patience, random acts of kindness, things like that. So that's what the Inner Gym was about. Really cool.
Well, I mean, you know, the thing that I think is so funny about it, or not funny, it's coincides with the work that I do. And we just talked about this earlier, Sophie, the work you do, is that because physical stuff is visible, literally, like you see it, you work out and you see your muscles get tense and you see all this stuff happening, you understand that it's changing you and that it's doing something.
Right.
But our heads my head looks the same whether I'm depressed, anxious, or feeling good.
That's right.
And so because when I look at you, all I see is how you're telling me that you feel. And we've all been conditioned to just fake it.
And that's one of the big problems with happiness is that it's really hard to have a before and after picture because you can have a guy who's a multi-millionaire who's miserable.
Absolutely.
Who gives all of that up, goes and works at a homeless shelter, and he's like the happiest he's ever been in his entire life. And
I've worked with a lot of those people.
Right. But if you look at them on paper, you know, someone else may look at that and that guy's in a worse off position because he doesn't have his mansion anymore and he's working around all this derelicts. When inside he feels more fulfilled than ever before because he's operating in a life of service.
Oh my God! I mean, and then you're getting into a whole other topic, even outside of paying attention to that inner kind of voice that you have in your head, which is what we expect delivers happiness,
right?
And what actually delivers happiness, or not necessarily at all related.
Right.
We've grown up in this place where we expect that a big house with a pool buys you happiness. And that's, by the way, not to say that there are not happy people that have a big house with a pool. That it's not like they're even mutually exclusive.
No.
But they're not as related as you think that they are.
No, and I think we're really good at paying lip service to this whole notion that money can't buy happiness, but that's not how we behave in our day-to-day life and our day-to-day choices. So the whole point of that book was to pick a fight with the people who claim that happiness is a choice. And
you got to work at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the inner gym.
And the whole point of the new book, Bliss More, is to pick a fight, so to speak, with people who have this assumption that meditation has to be difficult and challenging in order to be effective. There's a really popular advocate for meditation, he's a celebrity, who has this saying. He says, if meditation feels easy, you're either enlightened or you're not, or you're doing it wrong. And I just think that that's sowing too many seeds of confusion in the market. And
and setting people up for like, you're either a Buddha or this is going to be really hard for you.
Right. And it lets people off the hook. It makes people think you don't have to do it because it's too hard for you to do it. You know, and I'm here to say you're not off the hook. You got to do it like everybody else has to do it, and I'll give you a way to do it that
you got to put the work in.
That feels easy enough to do it, so that you actually look forward to.
I mean, that's what we come back to with everything. The background screen to my phone is find someone you're willing to do the work with. Or no, find someone you're willing to do the work with, and that's like forever. Whether it's your job, whether it's your relationships, whether it's meditation, whether it's happiness, like all of it takes work.
Yeah. And the truth of it is that it's all relationships. It's all different forms of relationships.
Exactly.
So that's why we say, about this podcast is we started out about relationships because people want to know about Sophie and I. And that's great. And we're more than happy.
People wanted to know about you guys.
Yeah. Like, because Sophie's written these articles about my cheating. I don't know if you know our backstory.
Well, you hinted at there were some challenges in your
there were some
past.
huge challenges.
Like anybody, right?
Yeah.
You
But,
guys have just been open about it.
Yeah. So Sophie started out being open about it. And then a lot of women reached out to her, which then made men reach out to me saying, oh, how do you do this now? How do you come back from that low point? And so that's what it started around. But all this stuff we talk about, I told you before, I want to talk about mindfulness in the context of relationships. It's all the same. And the reason it's the same to me is the fact that if you're not aware, if you don't have a tool in your daily life to allow you to gain awareness of when things are starting to go off kilter, you don't find out until something gets fucked up. Mm-hmm. You don't find out until the train falls off the tracks, which is what happened to us early on. Was I cheated, and that's when we realized we got to do something. And the first thing we had to do was Sophie broke up with me. Mm-hmm. If there was an ongoing tool for us to check in with the relationship in an honest way, et cetera, and all that stuff that you've got to do with as little judgment as possible and all that.
Or even a precursor before you even get in deep in a relationship in the beginning stages, like 10 things to, like a checklist.
Yeah.
Of like setting the tone, of building your foundation, of starting out your life with someone in a real way. Like there's not really anyone out there talking about that kind of stuff. It's once things go bad and array that then it's time to, we got to do something. Maybe, or you know what, maybe we're just not a good fit.
Which is what most people do, is they just don't talk about it, and then it either moves well enough into the future or it gets screwed up and they break up.
Right. So for my fans who aren't familiar with your background, well, what happened? Were you broken up for a while and then you got back together and then reconciled? Or?
Yeah, we were broken up for about 10 months, so about a year.
Wow.
And
with no intention of getting back together?
No, we both, I mean, we didn't think that we were. He thought that he lost us. And
I mean, Sophie wouldn't talk to me for the first 9.5 months of that. Yeah. So...
And then we ran into each other at a yoga class.
You didn't want to break up though, Adi.
I mean, I'd screwed up big time. It was weighing on me. I don't want to sound honest. We're gonna do an episode just on this, but I came forward because I knew it was gonna fall apart, and I wanted to be the one that told Sophie what happened instead of her finding out about it.
Right.
I had a feeling she was gonna break up with me. Did I know it was gonna feel like forever? No. But it got to a place where I was like, I have to tell her what's going on. And I totally understood why she broke up with me at that moment. I mean, she dumped on the spot. She was like, I have to break up with you now.
Yeah. He had given me no choice. It was like so disrespectful.
He wouldn't have respected you if you'd stayed with him.
No. And I wouldn't have respected myself, which is just the worst. Nothing can eat you a lot, like making a decision like that. And I've made decisions like that with my ex-boyfriend. I invited him to come to LA after I'd already moved here, and I didn't want him to come here, but I chickened out. And that was a decision.
How many times have we all done stuff like that?
Right? And it was a decision that ate me up. When he was here, every day I was like, why did I tell him to move here?
Resented him.
Resented myself, felt like crazy. Yeah. But then I was stuck. Yeah. And then we went through this, and it was like, I looked at him and I was like, you've given me no choice. There's zero respect here.
Yeah. And it was a time for me to learn and grow, right? I'd worked pretty hard to get Sophie and to kind of have her be my girlfriend. She had moved in, all this stuff, and then I screwed it up. And that's, you have to reflect on, why am I doing things that go against my own self-interest? And I was not anywhere near as, call it enlightened or aware back then as I was now, with all the work I still have to do now. And so that opportunity that year was really, really good.
We needed that.
Yeah. But you talked about, we think happiness is like a right, or we're just going to get it without the work. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think that's true for a lot of things. Yeah. We've got this false notion of life. I mean, that TEDx, the last one I did, is about when you really look at success for almost everybody, and I want to get to how you got to this place. For almost everybody, there has been a string of challenges, but we don't talk about those challenges. We just look at their success. Mm-hmm. A professor that I really respect at UCLA, Matt Lieberman, told me about one of his way to address it one time, and that was to give his students, his graduate students, a resume not just of all the successes he's had, not just of all the things that went really well and the articles that got accepted and the jobs that he got, but all the rejection.
Genius. I love that. Love that idea.
We're not honest about that shit. We don't tell people how much we failed because we want to look really good once we've succeeded. Mm-hmm. So actually, I think that brings me right to this thing. We were wondering about this before. What brought you to this place where you decided to make meditation, mindfulness, and teaching other people your life?
What's interesting is that, and not to sound like I'm, trying to plug the book, but that's one of the things that I wanted this new book, Bliss More, to be distinguished from all the other meditation books out there, is that I wanted to bring that into the conversation. So I spent a lot of time talking about my own personal journey and my failures as a meditator. And I talk about, there's one story I tell in the book about a very challenging relationship that I was in, where it kind of culminated in an argument, me trying to leave her apartment one night in Beverly Hills, not too far from where we are right now, and her not wanting me to leave, and us getting into this whole thing, and then me having to basically dart out of the door, and her chasing me around the block. It's 3:00 in the morning. Oof. In the middle of Beverly Hills. I'm running full speed, heart racing.
My goodness.
And I never realized how fast this girl was, but she was right on my heels the entire time.
Wow.
And I'm basically trying to outrun her so I can get into my car fast enough, find my keys, and get off and drive off before she can do something really kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't want to use the C word, but yeah. and barely made it out of there. And, so I'm driving away. It's like a movie. I'm watching her in the rearview mirror. She's like standing there like, I can't believe this is happening. And I'm thinking to myself, this is definitely the end, right? We've been together for a couple of years. There's no way I can keep going. Now I'm teaching meditation at this point. I'm a meditation teacher.
Right. This is what you do for a living, is teaching people how to do calm and anxiety free.
She is a meditator. She's a daily meditator, right? We're both daily meditators, spend many times sitting on our couches together meditating. And yet we're in this really crazy, if you were just to watching us from a fly on the wall viewpoint, you think these two people were completely insane. So anyway, 6 months later, we get back together. Right? There was a little temporary, okay, I can't be with you anymore. You're too unstable, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we got back together. So again, if you look at that and you consider the fact that this guy's a meditation teacher, then obviously the conclusion is, well, obviously meditation doesn't work because you're not supposed to be behaving like that when you meditate. And the point that I was making with the story is that if we hadn't been meditating, we may have stayed together for another 5 years. Or maybe that incident would have turned physical and abusive.
Yep.
Or worse. And we can't measure prevention. And so, one of the big challenges that I think we project onto a practice like meditation and onto relationships is that we have to be perfect in the relationship if we're doing these other things.
Right.
And yet we're not fully appreciating what's being prevented from the other things that we're doing. So I wanted that to be a kind of a through line throughout the entire book.
I love that.
And I use a lot of stories about myself, about other people, that just kind of brings meditation out of the clouds, back to the real world, back to the kitchen table. So again, people don't let themselves off the hook. Just because you had a reaction doesn't mean meditation isn't working. It means that it actually is working because you can reflect on it faster. Like that's how you want to gauge progress with the practice.
Find the lesson in it.
That's right.
See your part in it.
I mean, people that listen to my story with Sophie, and we've got this quaint little story that is true. I was at a coffee shop right by here, and I saw a saying on a mug, and that's what made me reach out to her 10 months after she hadn't talked to me really.
What was the saying? You have to
what would you expect to do today if you knew you couldn't fail?
And you said, I'm going to get back
I have the mug. We have the mug at home, and now we have that saying on like 7 different things at home. And I went home.
Meanwhile, she's out with her boyfriend at the time.
She was in
Thailand with a stranger.
She was in Thailand on a trip. Absolutely.
Doing God knows what.
But here's the point, right? The point
having
is
the best sex imaginable in your mind.
In his mind, right?
I'm not big on jealousy, and I just put a Gary V quote on my Instagram yesterday, and he said, "Envy is weak," or something along those lines. I'm not a big envious person, and the reason is, if I need to be jealous of somebody else of their successes, it's not about them at all. It's about me. What am I missing in my life? But when people hear our story, they think we don't fight. They think everything, like we walk around smiling all day and we like just have sex in public and behind bushes. That's not the way it works, right? It's just not.
Well, you do have 3
We've
kids.
never done that though.
Have sex in public behind bushes?
Some version
But is
of
anybody's
that.
sex life as romantic as what people think
Not at all.
on Valentine's
Not at
Day?
all.
I mean, so much so
In
that
fact,
people...
married people don't even have sex. I'm surprised you guys even have had enough sex to have 3 kids.
Well, we had to procreate.
Right. That's the
I need
word
my
on the street.
Yeah.
It's funny is people are so fearful of talking about how much sex you have that like nobody even knows what the standard is, right? Like nobody is willing to discuss the average because we're so scared that we're not going to do okay by comparison. And again, the awareness is the key, right? Like if you're paying attention to what's happening and being honest and truthful with your partner, then it's not about being perfect. It's about continuously progressing. And that's what I'm filling out. So I do this online course for addiction and help people. And I tell them, I literally just wrote this in the thing, like, if you can bring mindfulness into your life, this will be your new superpower. Is not that you will know what to do all the time, but you'll have a level of awareness about what needs to be done that most other people who are walking around are completely oblivious to. And if they're hitting the mark, oftentimes they're doing it just by mistake or because their parents taught them well. But every time for me, that things go off kilter, I know I need to get back to like really staying with myself. how do you define? I'm wondering about how you define mindfulness, because I've heard so many different definitions. Like, what's the definition you go by for people?
Well, I think one of the misconceptions is people look at mindfulness as a practice. And I see mindfulness mainly as a byproduct of doing any sort of inner work that allows you to create more space between something happening and you reacting to it. And so obviously present moment awareness is a part of the byproduct of mindfulness. Same with happiness, same with feeling a sense of fulfillment. Anytime you feel fulfilled, happy, and present, you're probably going to be more mindful of things than if you feel stressed, tired, and sick. You won't be as mindful as what's going on around you, regardless of whatever, Thich Nhat Hanh books you may be reading at that moment. So it's really a question of creating more balance inside. And that doesn't just mean meditating. It means exercising. It means eating well. It means surrounding yourself with positive and inspirational people.
When you say balance of all of those things, like I feel like balance in the last few years is just like my keyword. Like I've done every diet. I've tried every exercise program. I was a personal trainer, like the whole nine, I've tried every single thing. I bought all the books. And at the end of the day, what works for me is having a balance in it all. So working hard, but playing hard.
Yeah.
Like eating well, but having ice cream. Like all of those things, like yin and yang.
Right.
Going out, being around amazing people, but also having self-care and going inward.
Right. Yeah. And I know people who meditate like clockwork every day, but they don't exercise.
Right.
And I look at them and I go, dude, you look like you're in your second trimester right now.
I would exactly.
And you got to stop.
Wait. She is in her second trimester.
No, I mean guys. I know guy friends of mine who look like they're in their second trimester.
Totally. Yeah. We.
And they're like, no, this is the Buddha belly. I go, no, that's not. That's not.
No Buddha belly. No,
it's not cute.
It's not cute.
That's gonna be my quote for you from this podcast. That's not cute.
It's not cute. Buddha belly, not cute.
It's not sexy.
When I was in yoga teacher training, like each of the times, I was the same thing. Like so many people that like really got the yoga philosophy down, but didn't understand the food component. I was like, how is it possible that you're eating chips right now? And not without judgment, just like, or not with judgment, just like, I don't know how they can, I don't understand what you're missing and like how we can be so mindful in one area and in another completely lack. And then wondering why things aren't working out.
Well, I think a main part of the reason is because we have an like what Adi was saying, we have an underappreciation for the power of imbalance. Like it's a powerful thing. It's just like addiction. It is an addiction.
Well, it's disease. Imbalance is disease.
Your body is addicted. When you're stressed, your body is addicted to carbohydrate-rich foods.
Yeah.
So even though you may want to eat celery sticks, your body's screaming
for a muffin.
Go get those chips.
Yeah.
And just eat them.
Give me that
before
bagel.
you know it, you've already eaten half the bag and you don't even realize what's happening until someone points it out.
Look at the word disease. So disease, like it's without ease.
Right.
You're off balance. That's what creates disease in the body. Imbalance causes really terrible things to happen in your body.
Yeah, and I think people have blind spots all the time. So like if you believe that meditation, mindfulness, and those sorts of practices are there to bring peace and inner quiet to your brain, which is the way I think a lot, or relaxation and stress reduction into your life, and that's the role you see them having in. You might not let it in to your eating and exercise to the level that you would if you thought differently in the way that you talked about meditation and the having the experience of being mindful. If you see it as a whole life experience, you start looking at every area of your life and seeing how you can bring it in.
Yeah, and I think, to get back to your original question, the difference in mindfulness and meditation, I think people need to start reframing the practice of meditation, looking at it as a tool that is a more or less preventative in nature, right? It's not emergency medicine. You can't, it's like, your carburetor or whatever fails or your engine falls out, you're taking it to Jiffy Lube, for the oil change. And they're looking at it like, dude, we can't do anything with this.
Yeah,
right?
You should have done the work
Right. You
couple months ago.
You should have listened to the signs 2 months ago, and now we can change the oil really well and change the filters. And that's what meditation is.
Your muffler's still on the floor.
Meditation is Jiffy Lube for the body, right? And if you keep the regular maintenance happening on a daily basis, then the engine is going to work a lot better, and it's not going to fail as quickly as it would fail if you just, let everything get rickety inside. And so it's a dominoes effect. Either way, either towards disease or towards optimum health.
Wellness, yeah.
So this has to be a thing you struggle with in getting people to incorporate meditation into their life, because we don't live in a preventative society. People react to the discomfort rather than practicing what it takes to avoid the discomfort later.
Yes.
Just right off the cuff, I'm sure it's in the book, and this is a lot of what you talk about anyway, but what's like your number one tip typically for people to be able to kind of turn the corner on that and change the way they look at it?
Taking the marathon approach. I think, we suffer from what a friend of mine, Seamus Mullen, calls Amazon Prime syndrome. We want everything to happen within 2 days or less for free.
Yeah.
And
so true.
And you can't approach meditation in that way. You also don't want to approach meditation like in the same way you would approach a startup, where you have to work hard and all of that and try to control the situation and try to, remember everything and all of those ways we normally approach building or achieving success.
So not staying up till 1 o'clock.
Those don't work.
Cross-legged on a pillow, meditating for 7 hours.
Trying to meditate for 7. No, you just do a little bit, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. You don't need to do more than 20 minutes, 10 minutes at the least. But you want to do it every day. You want to start your day, if possible, with your meditation in the same way that you started with brushing your teeth and with showering. And then if you do it like that for a few months, you will reach a point where your body will become addicted to the feeling and the chemicals released during meditation. And this is what bodies do. This is why addiction is a whole market. There's a whole market for that, because it's such a powerful thing.
Have you ever heard about addictionity? There's this epidemic.
What is that?
It's an epidemic.
But the thing is that, not every addiction is a bad addiction. There could be good addictions.
Absolutely.
And
let's form as many of those as possible.
Right. If you have an addiction that allows you to be more self-sufficient in your life, then that's what you want. And then what that means is you reach a point, just like a heroin addict, you reach a point where you don't have to force yourself to take the stuff. You just want to take the stuff.
Or even for most people, if they took heroin, they'd actually throw up and have all these negative effects. But once you're used to it, you don't have the... So look, addiction by definition, the way we talk about it here, is negative in terms of the clinical. But I think what you're talking about, which is really relevant, is once you become dependent on something.
Yeah, chemically dependent on
if you're
medication.
chemically or psychologically or physically dependent on something, this is where people always say, to me, well, anything is addicted. People are addicted to air. I said, nobody's addicted to air because nobody's ever suffered because they had too much air. But people are dependent on air. And I think you're right on the fact that once you establish the habit, and I do this with my addiction clients all the time, the thing that you used to think was so difficult becomes your norm.
Right.
And looking back at your old habits, would you all of a sudden go, how did I live like that? Like what was that about? How could my mind have allowed me to participate in life that way? Cool. Right. So I love that tip, the kind of little approach. I have a question. This is something I've recommended to clients, and I want to see how you feel about it. A lot of my clients really struggle with the idea of how do I bring meditation in? Mm-hmm. And so I have these how to bring mindful attention into your everyday life. And I tell them, you can, count your steps while you're walking your dog, right? I have all these little tricks. Like even, if you're making coffee in the morning, you do it every single morning, do that mindfully and pay attention to the process and sort of talk yourself through it move the phone away, move all the other stuff away. Mm-hmm. Is that something you think is useful as a starting point? Yeah,
anytime you can disconnect and just be present to whatever is happening around you, that's you're winning. And I think, the bigger message to communicate is that the party is right where you are at all times. You're as happy as you're as happy as you have the potential to be in whatever moment you're in. There's nothing that's going to happen in the future that's going to bring in a wave of happiness that's going to make you feel better than you can feel right now. And this is evident all over the place. If that were the case, that you could achieve happiness in the future, then people like Robin Williams would still be here. People like Philip Seymour Hoffman will still be here doing their great work, But those are people who had almost everything, and yet they still weren't happy inside.
Yeah.
And so if we have to run the experiment for ourselves, it just ends up being an exercise in futility. And I think that there's so many people who have tried that experiment and that are trying it currently, that you can just look at other people's lives and you can see, if you really, really look at the state of consciousness of the people who have the most things. Take Trump, for instance, right? Would you say Trump is the happiest person you've ever... If there was a correlation between having stuff and being happy, then Trump and, Warren Buffett, these guys would be the happiest people on the planet.
Yeah.
And
right.
I don't know if you've been to India and all these kind of places before, but you see people who are living in squalor.
Like, any third world country.
Yeah, who just seem genuinely happy with whatever they have.
Yeah.
And for me, having been fortunate enough to travel to these kinds of places, it's just been a really good point of reference for this idea that happiness is inside, and then making that a priority. It really has to become a priority at some point. And unfortunately, like with addiction, we have to hit spiritual rock bottom before we start to really, really get the message that this needs to be a priority. And that changes the way we live our life and the choices we make.
I'm hoping that these sort of conversations get people to not have to, but just kind of go, oh yeah, I am more responsible for this than I thought. Let me try to put something in. Because I think it is a cultural thing, right? Like if your parents introduce a lot of these practices early on into life, it changes the way you look at life. But we live in this place. I mean, we just looked at this the other day. We were watching something and a commercial came on that we both looked at like, what is happening on the screen? Like, why is this the dream that is being sold to people? And it was the quintessential, if you get more stuff and have a better car, you will be a happier human. And it's sad.
The biggest delusion that you guys obviously are very familiar with is the notion that if I'm not happy, but I meet someone who's very groovy, then
I'll be happier.
If I get into a relationship with that person, then I'm going to be able to be happier than I am.
Then I'll be happy.
Yeah. And if I'm still not happy, it's their fault.
Yeah.
That's always an awesome solution.
Yeah. Exactly.
To just
find it in someone else.
Depend on somebody else
or something else
for your well-being.
Yeah.
Cool. I think those are some really, really awesome tips. We have questions that we ask every single one of our guests, and I'm going to ask them of you. Number one, what is the best advice you have ever received?
So I was complaining to my father about a relationship that had gone off the rails. And I was doing the whole, she's crazy, she doesn't understand me, blah, 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 blah. He's listening to me, and then without getting into a whole debate, he just says, look, you got it all wrong. She's not crazy. She's not intentionally trying to not get you. She just has different priorities from you. Your priority is this thing, to be together, whatever. Her priority is to try something else. And so that's really all that it is. And when he told me that, it just made so much sense. And it could be applied to almost anything else that I feel like is not working out, especially with another person, business-wise, love-wise. If it's not working out, if it's not going the way you want it to go, it doesn't mean that they're intentionally a monster or bad. Because, that's what we usually say in our mind. As if somebody ever wakes up in the morning and looks at themselves in the mirror and goes, I'm a monster. I'm a really bad person.
Yeah.
Today I want to be an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
No, they're just protecting themselves. They're doing the best they
have their own
can,
agenda.
given their priorities.
I like that.
So it became a really positive and useful framework for deciphering what was really going on in those kinds of situations.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
What has been your proudest moment?
My proudest moment was writing my books. Yeah, my first book that came out, which was self-published. So I didn't have anybody standing over me, and I just, it took a lot to get that book done and get it out into the world, and seeing people benefit from. The first time I saw somebody reading it out in public who I didn't know, like that was
so cool.
So good.
That was a wonderful moment. And same with this new book that I just wrote, Bliss More. Like just this process of writing a book, as you can imagine, maybe I don't.
I'm working on it right now. It's a freaking pain, man.
It gives a new meaning to being in the weeds, because it's just you, and you just have to just make your way out. You just have your machete, which is your pen, and you just have to write your way out of that, out of the woods.
Painful.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's a tough one. What has been your most difficult moment, or your hardest moment?
You know, people ask me, Light, do you ever get frustrated? Do you ever get upset? Do you ever get sad? Blah, blah, blah. Normally during regular life stuff, not really, to be perfectly honest. I'm a pretty even-keeled person. I've always been that way, even before I started meditating. However, the one thing that plugs me in, gets me angry, gets me upset, tends to be relationships.
Okay.
Like, relationships, that's what they're designed for, to push your buttons and help you to see what your limits are and all of that. So I would just say just the sum total, the aggregate of all of my relationships have been where I've been most frustrated, most upset, most out of balance.
Sophie uses this line from Marianne Williamson, which is the people that come into your life are there for maximum learning opportunity.
That's right.
Which is great because you learn, but it's also challenging because you don't know. And you have to be open to the knowledge.
Well, I've finally grown to the point where I actually appreciate those challenges in relationships. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, I look at them as opportunities for more personal growth and transformation.
Agreed. I don't necessarily in the moment while the problem or conflict is happening appreciate it, but
you have to be a very evolved person to stop in the moment and go,
"Oh, this is great."
But but I'd say in some pretty shocking moments, I've had the wherewithal to be like, this is going to be really great for our learning and growth. And Adie's like, I'm not ready for that shit yet. Get your Sophie shit out of here. Literally, in the middle of the heat, I've been very close to being like.
Everybody, we're back. I am sorry for that interruption, but there was literally a leaf blower right outside our window. And so, ironically, Sophie will now get back to talking about how you can be present even in the moment.
Yes.
And see the conflict for the benefit you're going to get from it down the line.
Yeah, I think this is something that through the years is definitely a muscle that I've trained and strengthened, and I feel the more that I practice it, kind of like intuition, but this same kind of muscle of knowing in the moment, just knowing intuitively, this thing's going to be great for us. This thing's going to be amazing for me and my growth, even though it sucks right now, even though it's tough. Really hard. And, and I try and teach Kai and Leo this too. It's very profound when you can realize that the world is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And that's really profound. Everything is a lesson. Everything is for your ultimate learning and growth and experience. It's not a punishment. It's not karma. It's to me, it's here as a lesson and as a gift, even though sometimes it's not easy to receive it.
Totally.
So self-rituals, self-care. Do you have anything that you want to share that you do other than meditation, unless that's your number one, right. Just to kind of tune in?
I do my daily exercise. I do my yoga, stretching. It's so funny, when I was growing up, my parents never took showers. They always would take baths. And I would always feel like that, it's inefficient, way of cleansing the body. And as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate taking bubble baths. So now I take... I'm a grown man taking bubble baths.
We take baths all the time.
Yeah, exactly. 3 or 4. Whenever I have an extra hour, I mean,
it's luxurious.
Yeah, and it's why wait till your birthday to take a bath?
Yeah.
Why can't every day be like your birthday?
Yeah.
You can treat yourself to stuff. You can if you're doing everything else you're supposed to be doing, sleeping in more often when you have the time. So I'm always trying to maximize those key areas that I understand are very important for establishing and maintaining balance. Sleep.
And that yin, just kind of being quiet, reading a book, having some candles lit.
I was posting the other day, I have the opposite of FOMO in my life. I have what they call JOMO, joy of missing out.
Yeah. Totally.
I love
because you were just so blissful in the moment you were in. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love being home.
Love
and in the end, isn't that the experience everybody wants? Is just to really, really, really enjoy whatever they're doing in that moment.
Right.
That's all we want.
That is the superpower to use your language. If you can have that and you can take that with you, you can go anywhere and you can find that.
Finding peace within yourself.
Absolutely. So this podcast is called Ignited, and we always like to ask each one of our guests, what ignites you? What is the thing that just, when it's happening, you're in that moment we were just talking about, you're just there?
So as I mentioned, when we started the podcast, I write these daily inspirational emails. And so what it's done for me in these last couple of years that I've been writing is every time I have a conversation with someone or I read something or even just like watch a movie or walk down the street, I find that I'm always perpetually sourcing inspiration from my environment. So it's really shifted the way my perception, the way I see things. And whenever I come across something that I know that I can share with my audience, I get super excited.
Awesome.
I'm like, oh, I can't wait to write this tonight and share it with everyone.
I love that.
Because I know that, people need that. We need that. I need that. When we wake up in the morning and you turn on the news or you just get online, there's so many reasons to feel discouraged. And there's so few reasons to feel optimistic about life. And I just think that, this podcast you guys are doing and the daily doses and just all of these other things, I think and I really take it very seriously. I look at it as a necessity to do my part. I vote and I pick up trash when I see it, but we also need to just use our gifts and talents to, whether it's writing, dance, writing plays, directing movies, whatever it is, to bring these messages of optimism in the human experience to more people, so everybody it can make the biggest difference, as from your experience with addiction and recovery. It can make a big difference to someone who's just at the end of their rope and they just don't think they can go another day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that you look for that inspiration everywhere else, because a lot of times it comes from other people, from experiences you've had in everyday life, and it's about noting it and paying attention and seeing it. I have this exercise I do with people about positivity bias. It's so easy for us sometimes to pay attention to all the things that are going wrong. Can you catch yourself every day feeling really good and then trying to just hold on to that feeling and go, oh my God, this feels really good. And what is it about it? What about my body? What about my thinking? What about the feeling that I have in my, in my psyche is allowing me to know that I feel good.
Right. And it's just, I don't know if we're at the end of the podcast or not, but one of the stories from the inner gym that I got a lot of good feedback from was when I told the story of the Washington, D.C. busker, who was a street performer down in the subway, who performed for 45 minutes, just a regular guy with baseball cap and, jeans on, who was playing this magical music. And I think he got like $40 or something after 45 minutes, or $30 after 45 minutes. And 6 people stopped to listen to him play. And the whole thing was a ruse. It was orchestrated by a Washington Post reporter who wanted to take one of the top musicians, Joshua Bell, into an unsuspecting environment and have him stand there with his $3 million violin and play some of the most intricate music ever composed in human history, just to see if people would even notice. Because obviously you can notice something that's so-called beautiful if it's in an orchestra or
if you paid $1,000 for the ticket.
That's right. And so, the only people that really stopped to listen were the kids and their parents this was during rush hour. One weekday morning. So the parents kept rushing the kids along. And I always think about that when I'm walking down the street and just wondering how many Joshua Bell moments are happening right now that I'm missing. And what are those opportunities?
Well, for everybody listening, I hope that this has been one of those moments, just listening to this and getting the lessons and the tips on how to make everyday experiences better, right? You said it before, the happiness is in you.
Right.
Stop looking outside for it. Stop looking at your partner for it. Start understanding what it is that you're doing that's holding you back from it.
And get busy uncovering it inside.
Yeah. And I love that it's called a practice, because you're going to be practicing it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Exactly. There's no graduation. If you're on planet Earth, there's no graduation from it. You're still going to have to practice.
Continuous fine-tuning.
And if not in this lifetime, maybe the next lifetime.
Yeah, and then enjoy the process. So if you know there's no finish line, learn to enjoy the process, because that's all you got.
That's right.
I love it. Okay. So we're going to have the link to the book and where people can buy it. And we're going to have a link to your past book and your website and all that kind of stuff. Any other resources people should have if they want to get in touch with you?
You can always just go to lightwatkins.com and find pretty much everything there.
Rock and roll.
Thank you so much.
Light, thank you so much for coming to our humble little house.
This was awesome. Returning to your house.
Returning. It's been here before.
Oh, that's right. Where is that meditation series?
It's on Wanderlust.
Wanderlust.
Cool.
You can practice no matter where you are in the world. You can practice with Light online. Wonderlust
There's a 21
TV.
day meditation challenge. You can download it. You can have it for the rest of your life.
Yep.
So cool.
And people loved it. So
Yeah, and you guys worked hard for it.
yeah, we did.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Again, have a great day. Everybody listening, have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.
See you next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.